Imagine you're a home-based BCBA assigned to work with a new client, a 5-year-old girl. You call her father to schedule a time to do the initial assessment, and he's angry that you want to come to the house. He wants to bring her into the office and is adamant that he won't allow the assessment to happen at home. He's belligerent and condescending. His voice is raised, and you can feel your physical reaction to him. This is not the way you want to start building a relationship with a parent, but it's out of your hands, right? You need to observe the child in her natural environment, and there isn't even an office for him to bring her to. Do you stand your ground? Refuse to provide services? If you think this example is exaggerated, it's not. Our interactions actually went downhill from there. It was so bad that I actually had my phone out, prepared to dial 911 if something seemed off when I drove down the driveway to the house in the woods. How many of you have experienced challenging situations with parents? Maybe it wasn't as extreme as this, but have you worked with parents that you sort of dreaded talking to or who you just couldn't motivate? Stop for just 10 seconds and think about some of the parents you have worked with in the past. Take a minute and write down the client's initials or some other fact that will help you remember the parents you're thinking of right now. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Amelia Delphonse. I'm a BCBA and co-founded Master ABA with my twin sister, Diana Kelly. Through Master ABA, we help BCBAs gain confidence in their skills so they can have a greater impact with their clients. Our focus is on ethical, compassionate, client-centered practices. This course is eligible for CEUs, but you must watch the video all the way to the end. There will be a short quiz at the end of the lesson. You must also mark the mission accomplished lesson complete to receive your CEU certificate. Also in the mission accomplished lesson is information about how to update your BCBA number in your account. Please update your number before you complete the quiz. This will ensure that your certificate populates correctly. You can find your certificate by logging into your account on Master ABA Academy. Scroll all the way to the bottom of the sidebar menu on the left side of your screen and click on My Certificates. If for some reason you miss a step or have trouble with your certificate, email us at support@masteraba.com. We're happy to help with anything you need. You can find the lesson notes along with other helpful resources in the Resources tab and all the references in the References tab. Throughout the course, feel free to pause the video to take notes to practice as we go along. Take time to think about the interactions you've had with parents in the past. This will help you connect the process I'm going to talk about to your actual work and use the strategies after the course is finished. If you've taken other courses with me in the past, you know that I use a lot of stories in my training. I find that it not only helps people understand what I'm trying to teach, but also helps to lighten the mood, depending on the story. One of my favorite stories is a lesson I learned in building a collaborative relationship with parents to make sure we are on the same page before I start making recommendations. I was relatively new in the field. I really had just a couple of years experience with direct work, but I thought I knew quite a bit. I was providing services in the community to autistic children. I routinely picked kids up at home or school and went different places in the community like the playground, stores, or the library. One day, I went to a big, beautiful house to pick up a new client, a 4-year-old autistic girl who loved dinosaurs. That was literally all the information I had about her and her family. I showed up at the house at the scheduled time, and it was essentially, "Hey, I'm Amy. I'm here to pick up your kid." That was always such a weird part of my job. Anyway, her mother let me take her out, and I still had very little information about her. We weren't billing ABA. We were billing a service called functional support services. So the intake process was really different than what we do for ABA. I took her to the local library where she outright refused to do a single thing that I asked. My first inkling that this wasn't going to be an easy afternoon was when I opened the back door of the car, unbuckled her, and stepped back. She jumped out quickly and took off running across the parking lot. I caught up with her and gently took her hand. We walked back to the car to get the things I had left behind, and the whole time she kept trying to bite the back of my hand. Once safely inside, I worked to build a rapport. I found all the dinosaur books and even some toys that I hoped she would like. She was interested, but each time I asked her to do a simple task, even if it was something I thought she wanted to do, she either kicked me or she screamed. After 3 exhausting hours with her, I finally got to take her home. I rang the bell. Her mom, a very tall, smart, intimidating woman, answered. I explained what happened while we were out and proceeded to tell her mother that the first thing we needed to work on was compliance. Her mother's demeanor instantly changed from friendly to angered Mama Bear. She told me in no uncertain terms that we would not be working on compliance and that she had worked diligently with her child's school to have the word compliance removed from the IEP. I stood in stunned silence, completely out of my element with no idea how to respond. Her mother went on to tell me that she wanted her daughter to process situations and her feelings, and she would not tolerate someone directing her to comply. I nodded understanding as she spoke because that was all that I felt capable of doing. Have you made these types of blunders before? I know I have made many other stories that I could tell you. Experiences like this have taught me the importance of building a collaborative relationship with parents before I make any suggestions. I will tell you how the story ends in just a bit, but right now I want to talk a little bit about the steps to build a collaborative relationship with parents. Let's start by first defining what a collaborative relationship is, so we are all talking about the same thing. A collaborative relationship within the context of behavior analysis and parent training can be defined as a dynamic, interactive process characterized by joint participation between a BCBA and a parent or caregiver toward shared goals. These participatory behaviors may include, but aren't limited to, goal setting. The BCBA and the parent actively partake in setting objectives for the intervention, identifying goals that are both meaningful and acceptable in the context of the client's family and culture. Open communication, a steady stream of bidirectional information sharing where both parties engage in discussing progress, concerns, and feedback. This may involve regular meetings, emails, or phone calls where both the BCBA and the parent contribute to the conversation, rather than one dominating the discussion and taking the lead. Shared decision-making. Decisions regarding intervention strategies, modifications, and general treatment direction are made collaboratively, with the BCBA providing empirical guidance and the parent providing insight into the child's and family's unique circumstances. Responsiveness. Both the BCBA and the parent demonstrate a willingness to consider and incorporate each other's suggestions and feedback, adapting the behavior accordingly. Respect and validation. Interactions are characterized by mutual respect, with each party acknowledging and valuing the perspective and expertise of the other. Commitment to joint action. Both the BCBA and the parent demonstrate behaviors that reflect a commitment to implementing the agreed upon intervention plan. And finally, coactive problem solving. When challenges arise, the BCBA and the parent engage in a problem solving process together, utilizing data and shared experiences to develop solutions. This process typically involves defining the problem, generating potential solutions, selecting a strategy, implementing that strategy, and then evaluating the outcomes objectively. Coming in as the expert and immediately offering suggestions even when the suggestions are based on behavioral assessments creates barriers to parents participating in parent training. Parents may feel overwhelmed or dismissed. They may feel overwhelmed by the sudden influx of suggestions and may not fully understand the reasoning behind them. They may also feel like their own insights and experiences are not being valued or taken into consideration. There is likely to be a lack of trust or buy-in. If the BCBA does not take the time to build a relationship with the parents may not trust the BCBA's expertise or feel invested in the suggested interventions. This lack of trust and buy-in can lead to poor implementation of the interventions and reduced outcomes for their child. There may be resistance to future interventions. If the BCBA's initial approach is perceived as heavy-handed or dismissive, parents may be less likely to be open to future interventions or suggestions. This can create a barrier to effective collaboration and hinder the progress of the child. Finally, it can lead to missed opportunities for shared learning. When a BCBA comes in as an expert and does not take the time to build a collaborative relationship with the parents, they miss out on opportunities for shared learning and mutual growth. Parents can provide valuable insights into their child's behavior and learning styles, and the BCBA can offer their expertise in behavior analysis. By working together, both parties can learn from each other and create a more effective intervention plan. Despite an abundance of literature supporting the use of parent training and collaboration to improve outcomes and generalization from ABA programs, little research exists that actually looks at how to do this. Perhaps this is due in part to a belief that BCBA should generalize their skills of pairing with clients and providing supervision to staff and be able to generalize those skills to their relationship with parents. But there are important differences that make building a collaborative relationship different with parents. First, parents often have a long history of experiences that interfere with their ability to put into practice what you are trying to teach them. Where staff generally already believe in the value of ABA and have at least a foundational understanding of the basic principles, parents often seek services simply because that's what they were told to do. They might not believe in the effectiveness of ABA yet. This difference in where they're starting should lead you to interact with parents in a way that is different than you would with staff. Second, building a collaborative relationship with parents is often different than it is with clients because of their verbal language abilities. While verbal skills are incredibly necessary to learning the strategies we teach, these skills also get in the way when they form thoughts and memories that compete with what we teach. For example, we might tell a parent that they should wait for their child to demand for something that he wants before giving it to him. But the parent might have a thought that competes with this advice, such as, but I already know what he wants. This course is about shifting your approach to parents so that you become a cohesive team working together toward shared goals. Taking the time to build this collaborative relationship with parents leads to better follow through with implementing interventions, open conversations about barriers to following through, an exchange of information and ideas, fewer canceled sessions, reduced parent stress, and better outcomes for the clients. Early in my career, I felt parents would respect me more if I approached them with confidence and provided clear guidance. As you discovered in my earlier story, this wasn't often the case. This approach builds a wall between you and the parents. You separate yourself as the expert. If the parent doesn't know you, they are highly unlikely to trust what you tell them. The framework Christensen and Sheridan 2001 developed includes the 4 A's of an effective partnership: approach, attitudes, atmosphere, and actions. To establish a collaborative relationship, you must first adopt an approach of shared responsibilities for outcomes, foster attitudes of cooperation, respect, and a willingness to learn from each other, create an atmosphere that welcomes families by being comfortable, friendly, and approachable, engage in actions that promote partnership by being responsive to the different needs of each family and situation. A little later in this course, I'm going to show you how you can use the ACT matrix to accomplish this. Building a collaborative relationship with parents is an intentional, ongoing process. Carefully consider how your communication and actions either promote or prevent this type of relationship. Throughout each interaction with caregivers, ensure treatment goals align with the family's values. Be sensitive to cultural differences. Use language the caregivers understand. Show your imperfections and be human. Demonstrate respect and recognize parents as the expert on their child. Often it takes a variety of non-behavioral skills to effectively develop a collaborative relationship with caregivers. These skills are often not taught in the verified course sequence, and many supervisors lack the skills themselves and therefore can't teach them to their supervisees. Fox, 1998, described therapists who have a specific interpersonal skill set as behavioral artists. These skills include rapport building and a desire to be the catalyst for positive change. Attention to details of client and caregiver behavior that might be subtle. Feeling a sense of personal challenge when encountering a particularly difficult client and viewing it as an opportunity for the client to experience success. Seeing the humor in everyday and extraordinary events. Maintaining an optimistic attitude while expecting interventions to succeed. Sustaining objectivity and positivity despite encountering negative or challenging behaviors, including avoiding taking these behaviors personally. And creatively approaching challenges with a do whatever it takes attitude. How many of these behaviors do you exhibit every day? It's hard to keep these up when faced with challenges that you face every day, but these behaviors have an incredible impact on how the parents you work with perceive you. According to Chadwell et al., 2019, parents are often willing to trade a degree of treatment effectiveness for a therapist or intervention that aligns with their family's practices or beliefs. When developing a rapport with parents and caregivers, you must consider their preference for teaching methods and interventions. Despite ABA's position as a science, there remains a considerable amount of flexibility when choosing teaching methods and interventions. We often have our go-to recommendations that we are comfortable with or have had a lot of success with. But if those recommendations don't align with the parents' goals or values, we aren't going to be very effective at building a collaborative relationship if we choose them. When working with parents, maintain an open mind and collaborative approach. Consider offering parents a choice between different interventions that might ultimately achieve the same outcome. Ask parents for their feedback on interventions as they implement them. Ask parents if aspects of the interventions align with the family's culture and values. Maintaining this collaborative approach leads to a better relationship with parents and improved parent follow-through with appointments and application of chosen interventions. Establish a process for assessing not only the client's needs, but also the parent's needs before beginning services. This process begins during your first interaction with parents by asking relevant open-ended questions such as, can you tell me a little about your family? Or, can you tell me about your relationship with your child? Be genuinely interested in the responses to these questions and ask follow-up questions to gain better insight. I use the ACT matrix to facilitate this conversation, and I use it to create a shared purpose or direction for services. Acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, as it's commonly called, is rooted in ABA and offers concrete strategies and exercises for diffusing thoughts and emotions, especially difficult ones. When working with overwhelmed parents under extremely stressful conditions, many of these strategies could be helpful to your practice. ACT is based on relational frame theory, or RFT, and works to build more flexible relational frames or build new ones altogether. I'm not going to dig too deep into RFT or ACT in this training, but I encourage you to look for additional training in this area if you're interested. It's actually really a fascinating topic. A relational frame is a way of responding to one stimuli in relation to another stimuli. Looking at relational frames helps us understand how someone sees connections between different stimuli. They could be related in a variety of ways, including equivalent, opposite, or just a comparison. It's kind of like a picture frame because a relational frame can hold many different relations, just like a picture frame can hold many different pictures. Let's look at an example that might be relevant to parent training. Many parents of children who have behavior problems have thoughts or beliefs that they are bad parents. These thoughts or beliefs often perpetuate themselves and may even prevent themselves from effectively utilizing the strategies that you're trying to teach. Here's another example. I worked with a mother whose 10-year-old son had Prader-Willi syndrome. Her son was extremely aggressive toward her, and I was concerned for her safety. She seemed to accept these behaviors as just part of who her son was, and initially refused to even try anything I suggested. I couldn't figure out why she didn't want to change her son's behavior, or why I was there if she didn't. Then one day I got it. I was in the house one morning before school, and she was trying to get him dressed. She was wrestling with him, trying to remove his pajamas. He kicked and scratched at her. I asked her to stop and let him get dressed by himself because he was fully able to do this, and he just refused. She said something I will never forget. She said, "But he has Prader-Willi syndrome." I wasn't sure what she meant by that at first, but she went on to explain that she had been part of different support groups. All of them told her that children with Prader-Willi syndrome have behavior problems and she should just get used to it. She had a relational frame that connected her son, his diagnosis, and behavior problems. This relational frame was preventing her from believing that anything she or I did would be effective in changing his behavior. I needed to help her change this relational frame, or there was no hope in getting her to follow through with anything I recommended. Why would anyone go to the effort of implementing behavioral interventions if they believed that their child was going to have ongoing behavior problems for the rest of his life? You hear all these people talking about different strategies to get buy-in from parents, but what they don't teach is how to address the underlying reasons parents don't participate. It's not really about getting buy-in, it's about changing any relational frames they have that might prevent them from joining you and accepting what you're telling them. Using ACT provides a concrete way to help parents diffuse these thoughts, making them more open to your recommendations. You're not trying to be a therapist and help them sort through all their emotional baggage. You're simply trying to help them step back and see their private events, their thoughts and feelings a little bit more objectively. ACT is fluid and flexible, designed to increase flexible thinking. There are many different approaches you can take and strategies you can use. There is no one structured way to kind of do ACT. With practice and experience, adapt your practice to align with your professional values and each of your families. The ACT matrix is, for me, the most valuable tool for incorporating some of the principles of ACT into practice. The ACT matrix was created in 2009 by Kevin Polk, Mark Webster, and Gerald Hambright. It can help you understand relational frames the parents you work with might have that could stand in the way of them fully participating with you. And it can help them become more aware of the connection between their internal states and their behavior. This is going to be just a really quick overview of the matrix, which is only one small component of ACT. I will provide links to additional resources in the resources tab if you're watching this video for CEU, so you can learn more if you're interested. Let me start by saying that not all parents are open to sitting down and watching me draw this matrix out. Sometimes I just use the matrix to guide my conversation and ask relevant questions without drawing it in this form. Other parents appreciate the visual. Do your best to read their interest and choose a method that they're going to be comfortable with. The ACT matrix is a visual representation that allows us to sort our experiences into 4 categories. It consists of 2 intersecting lines. The horizontal line represents the 2 directions you can go in your life, toward or away from different pleasant or unpleasant experiences. And the vertical line represents the separation between the physical world experienced through our 5 senses above the horizontal line and the internal world experienced through our thoughts, feelings, and memories below the horizontal line. When starting with the ACT matrix, begin in the bottom right-hand quadrant by asking the question, who and what matters most? For the sake of today's training, these might be things the parents value that are related to their child. They might value their child's independence or happiness, or they might value cooperation and task completion. Parents might identify that their child's therapists or teachers are important to them, or they might say that their extended family is a vital part of their child's life. Hopefully, you can already see how the parent's response to this question might impact the way you talk about services with the parent. Next, shift to the lower left-hand quadrant and answer the question, what difficult thoughts, feelings, or memories get in the way of chasing who and what matters most? This can be hard for parents to talk about or even identify for themselves. Common thoughts and feelings that we might think of as negative include fear of failure, feeling incompetent, or feeling responsible for something bad happening to someone else. In this quadrant, we want to include memories of past challenges related to the current situation. This might include a memory of someone at the grocery store telling them they should control their child, or a teacher inappropriately reprimanding their child. Depending on the situation, the parent might identify only a few thoughts, feelings, or memories, or the list might be considerably longer. Once you identify the main internal variables at play in the situation, begin to look at the observable behaviors that are connected to those internal experiences. Here, we want to know what behaviors the parents engage in that allows them to escape those difficult thoughts, feelings, and memories they just listed. This might be behaviors such as complaining to their spouse, watching TV, or even taking a nap to avoid the feeling altogether. The final quadrant looks at what behaviors the parents engage in or could engage in that will bring them closer to who and what matters most to them. These behaviors allow them to chase those things that are important to them. They might be things like joining a support group, spending dedicated time with their child, or participating in parent training with you. Next, ask the parents if they might have the opportunity to notice when some of these things come up for them over the next week or so. They shouldn't try to change their behavior, just notice how their thoughts and behaviors might be connected. You want them to become more aware of how their thoughts, feelings, and memories are connected to those behaviors so they can eventually make some conscious choices. There's no judgment, and we aren't classifying any of these thoughts or behaviors as good or bad. We want to help parents notice if these behaviors are working for them. Some of the behaviors will be helping them chase those things they value, and others won't. This process is most helpful when the parents actively identify this for themselves. The parent I told you about, the one whose son had Prader-Willi syndrome, had a hard time changing how she interacted with her son. Even after we built a collaborative relationship and got on the right track. We worked through this process that I'm teaching you, and she began to notice these connections and decided that much of what she was doing wasn't helping her son, and it wasn't helping her move towards those goals. Each time she found herself making excuses for not trying one of my recommendations, she'd say, "And how's that working for me?" Help parents get in the habit of asking themselves this question. If it's working, great. They should keep doing it. If it's not bringing them closer to those things that are important to them, it's time to think about making a change. Just by going through this process with parents, you're able to develop an understanding of their values and beliefs, as well as what might be getting in the way of them fully engaging in services. This helps you frame your communication in a way that aligns with what you know about the family. It's a really powerful tool, but it actually gets better than this. The ACT matrix can also be used in a similar way to create a shared purpose, which is a great exercise when building a collaborative relationship. By completing a loop through the matrix with the parent, you have your first experience as a team working together toward a shared purpose. Start with the same matrix we just talked about. This framework stays the same, but the questions shift just a little bit. Again, begin in the lower right quadrant, but this time ask the question, what is our shared purpose? For parent training, this will probably be to help the client achieve whatever goals are established, but you might have other things you want to include here. Be open to the parent's ideas and include them while going through the matrix. For the mother who was upset about my suggestion that we work on compliance, this shared purpose might be to help her daughter successfully navigate difficult situations. You don't need to get specific with how you're going to achieve the big goals. This is the process just to make sure everyone is on the same page. Imagine how the situation would have been different if I had had this conversation with the mother before taking her into the library. This is probably the most important part of creating a collaborative relationship with parents. Get clear on your shared purpose with the parent, and everything else tends to fall into place a lot easier. Next, you'll move to the lower left quadrant and talk about what unpleasant thoughts, feelings, or memories might come up together that's related to the shared purpose. Kevin Polk and Phil Tenaglia from the ACT Matrix Academy refer to this as the yucky stuff. This might be a parent's past experiences with ABA. It could be something related to the negative publicity ABA receives, or it could be something completely different. This is the opportunity to uncover some of the barriers that might exist for the parents that you're working with. For the mother of the client with Prader-Willi syndrome, one of these yucky things was the belief that her son would always have behavior problems. For you, it might be that you're not sure you have the experience you need to help their child, and you might need to find a mentor. You might be reluctant to be vulnerable here because you want parents to have confidence in your skills. Carefully consider the way you present the yucky stuff, and most parents will appreciate you showing that you're human. Now it's time to talk about behaviors, an area that's much more comfortable for most of us. In the upper left quadrant, ask the question, what happens when the yucky stuff comes up for us? This can be eye-opening if you're all honest with each other. For the mother of the child with Prader-Willi syndrome, this was canceling appointments or not answering the door when I got there. She also allowed her old habits of interacting with her son to take over. For the mother who was not a fan of the word compliance, she raised her voice or demanded that I change my approach. Finally, ask the question, what could we do to get closer to our shared purpose. This is the opportunity to discuss collaborative strategies, including meeting regularly to discuss progress and working together to solve problems that come up. Discuss the roles and responsibilities from each side to maintain the collaboration you're building and establish clear expectations. Parents who go through this process generally feel heard and valued. How do you think this might impact the parents' participation in services and their follow through with interventions that you decide on together? In my experience, it makes a huge difference. Try it yourself and let me know how it goes. The ACT matrix is only one part of building a collaborative relationship with parents. This process helps you understand their perspective and provides an opportunity to create a shared purpose, just as you do with your clients. You need more information to develop a plan that will lead to successful outcomes. If you're thinking that this sounds like I'm going to recommend conducting assessments, you're right. There are two main areas of assessment you should consider: assess for parent stress and the parent's skills and knowledge of ABA. A survey by Sharpley et al. 2019 found that over 80% of parents of autistic children reported sometimes being stretched beyond their limits, with mothers experiencing higher stress levels than fathers. This is corroborated by research by Chatham et al. 2022, indicating that parents of children with and without autism experience parent stress differently, with those parenting children with autism facing more intense challenges. This probably isn't surprising to you. Factors contributing to parent stress include concerns about their child's future, communication barriers, socialization difficulties, and the pervasive nature of autism. The lack of social support is also highlighted as a significant stressor for these parents. The parents you work with are no doubt under a tremendous amount of stress, and one of the goals of parent training should be to reduce the stress to the extent possible. The Parent Stress Scale by Berry and Jones, 1995, is a great tool for assessing the parent's level of stress. By acknowledging that high levels of stress is common, it can help normalize these feelings for parents. It provides a measurement of a parent's perception of their relationship with their child. Conducting this survey with parents at the onset of treatment allows you to understand areas the parent feels are most challenging or most successful. This can guide your conversations and help you understand the parent on a deeper level. Conducting a repeat survey allows you to demonstrate if progress has been made. If interested in learning more about how parent training can impact parent stress, I have another CEU course called Reducing Parent Stress Through Effective Parent Training, where I dig into the causes of parent stress and the steps you can take to alleviate the stress through parent training. That course is currently only available in the dojo at the Master ABA Academy. I will put a link in the resources tab if you're interested in learning more. The second type of assessment you should conduct is a skills assessment. In the same way, measuring the success of your interventions with your learner ensures success of your program. Evaluating parent and caregiver skills across a variety of ABA strategies can improve the effectiveness of your parent training. This assessment can help you identify the strengths and values of the parents, as well as the areas that might need greater support or training. Completing an assessment with parents can help them identify which topics they might want training in. The Achieve Parent Training Assessment provides a method of demonstrating measurable gains in parent behavior and implementation of ABA interventions by breaking down common ABA interventions into fidelity checklists. The assessment guides training in basic ABA principles and strategies for skill acquisition while measuring fidelity of implementation. I have included the PDF download of this assessment in the resources tab of this lesson so you can get started right away. Once you have the information from the ACT matrix and both types of assessments, you're ready to sit down with the parents and get to work. Start by developing goals together. At this point, you probably already have identified overall treatment goals, but work with the parents to break down those goals into smaller, more achievable steps. Bring your knowledge of ABA strategies to the table, but ask questions that draw the parents in and encourage them to share their knowledge of their child. For example, if one of the overall goals for treatment is to expand the child's functional communication, you might recommend MAN training and ask the parents to give you a list of the things their child might be most motivated to ask for. Involving parents in this way makes them a valuable member of the treatment team rather than a passive recipient of your recommendations. Once you have created the treatment goals together, create your treatment plan and thoroughly review it with the parents. Avoid the temptation to send it off in an email for them to review on their own, especially with the first plan. Discuss your recommended interventions for addressing target behaviors, describing what those interventions will look like when implemented by the RBT. If parents express any concerns, acknowledge them and offer alternatives that might be more acceptable to the parents. Remember that collaborative treatment planning is a dynamic process. Provide recommendations based on your assessment, expertise, and experience, but be open to making changes based on the parents' input. When possible, provide parents with choices of interventions or strategies. Clearly explain the risks and benefits associated with each option. If you feel strongly that there's only one vital strategy, clearly explain why you feel that way. Even after parents have agreed to the plan, remain flexible and open to changing your approach as needed. Making small changes based on input from parents often leads to a dramatic difference in their perception of services and willingness to participate and follow through. Collaboration doesn't end once the plan is developed. Throughout each parent training session, be responsive to the thoughts and ideas parents express. Engage in active listening and focus on topics that are most meaningful for the parents. McNaughton and Vostel 2010 described the laugh, don't cry method of active listening. This method provides important insights for active listening so that you can easily integrate them into your practice. Laugh, don't cry stands for listen. The first step is to actively listen to the person speaking. Give them your full attention and focus on understanding what they are saying without any distractions. Ask questions. To gain a deeper comprehension of the conversation, ask open-ended questions that encourage the speaker to provide more information. This helps to clarify any ambiguities and allows for a more thorough understanding of the message. Focus on the issues. Pay attention to the main issues and challenges raised during the conversation. Ask further questions to delve deeper into these issues and gain a better understanding of the speaker's perspective. Find a first step. Once you have a good understanding of the conversation, ask the speaker what the next step or solution could be. This helps to move the conversation from discussion to problem-solving mode. Now, don't criticize people who aren't present. Avoid making negative comments or judgments about individuals who are not part of the conversation. Focus on understanding the speaker's perspective without involving unrelated parties. React hastily and promise something you can't deliver. Refrain from responding impulsively or making commitments that you may not be able to fulfill. Take the time to fully understand the situation and consider your response before making any promises. Yakety yak. Avoid excessive talking or dominating the conversation. Active listening involves giving the speaker ample opportunities to express themselves without interruption or unnecessary interjections. Using this method of active listening will ensure that you provide parents with ample opportunities to express their thoughts, opinions, and values. I know you have a lot of knowledge to share, but your turn comes when it's time to turn on the teaching. And here it is. With all that information you've acquired through the process so far, you're ready to start teaching the skills parents need to meet the goals you chose together. If you're using a structured parent training curriculum like our Achieve Parent Training curriculum, use it to guide your interactions, but don't stick to it rigidly. Choose lessons based on what's most important to the parents based on all the information you've collected so far. Some skills are prerequisites for others, more advanced skills, just like when we are teaching our clients. But if you have completed an assessment, you won't waste time teaching parents things they already understand. Skip to the information that will have the most impact for families. This keeps them engaged and motivated. Revisit this collaborative process as often as is necessary. You could make it part of your regular assessment process, but you can return to parts of the process whenever you feel it would be helpful to your relationship with the parent. To quickly recap, the process of building a collaborative relationship with parents includes using the ACT matrix to identify the variables that impact the parent's behavior, assess the parent's stress and skills, develop shared goals, create a treatment plan that aligns with the family's values, teach skills based on the individual needs of the parents and child, then revisit as often as necessary. Throughout the process, it's critical to maintain open, respectful communication that shows the parents that you value them as an essential part of the team. Use this process and see how your parent training transforms. Before we wrap up, I just want to let you know how the two stories I started earlier turned out. The mother who did not want me to work on compliance was very clear in what she wanted for her child. She ranted at me and I just stood there stunned, not knowing what to say. When she seemed to be running out of steam, about 10 minutes later, I told her that I also wanted her daughter to process what was going on, but I couldn't help her with that if I couldn't get her to first walk safely with me in the community. I asked her to ignore the terminology that I chose, but I could see that I had already damaged the relationship and we weren't starting off the way that we needed to. After a lot of backpedaling, I asked her to just trust me enough to give me 2 weeks to see if my methods might help. She grudgingly agreed, but I could tell she didn't actually trust me. After 2 weeks, we did see some important improvements, and she was a lot safer with me while we were in the community. Her mother allowed me to continue using my methods, and we continued to see gains. Through many, many ups and downs across several years, we came to an understanding. During one IEP meeting, her mother laughed and said she was going to have t-shirts made that said, "I'm compliant with compliance." Even when you have the same ultimate goals, jumping in to make recommendations or using the wrong terminology builds walls instead of bridges. Take the time to really be a partner with parents. The other story, the one of the mom whose son had Prader-Willi syndrome, also has a happy ending. Going through the process of completing the ACT matrix helped me understand the beliefs that she had that prevented her from following through with my recommendations. She wasn't against the recommendations, but she also didn't believe that they would work for her son. One day, we were sitting on the couch discussing the behaviors that she was engaging in that allowed her to escape some of the unpleasant thoughts she was having. I said, "But his behavior is not his disability. It's the results of the contingencies that have surrounded the behavior in the past." She jumped off the couch, ran into the kitchen, and wrote, "His behavior is not his disability," on a sticky note that she put on the cabinet. That was the moment when she finally connected the other things I had been trying to tell her. Persistence and patience pays in the end. Have faith that through this process, you will reach the parents and be able to help them achieve their goals. That's it for today. I hope you have found this helpful and you learned some strategies you can start implementing with parents right away. If you're watching this for CEUs, you will need to complete the quiz at the bottom of this lesson. In the Mission Accomplished lesson, you will find information about how to change your BCBA number in your account. Please update this if needed before you mark the lesson complete. You will not receive your certificate until you mark the lesson complete. Your certificate will not be emailed to you. You can find it by logging into your account. There are instructions and an image to help you locate the certificate in that Mission Accomplished lesson. There's a brief survey also in that last lesson. Please take a minute to complete it and let me know what you thought of this course. It helps me improve the courses I'm offering. Make sure to email us with any questions at support@masteraba.com. Thanks for joining me today. I will see you all in the comments.